Halfway through Anime Architecture by Stefan Riekels, there's a quote from the renowned anime director Mamoru Oshii, which sums up why the backgrounds in his films are so crucial, but that in a way also points to how important world building can be in science fiction and fantasy storytelling in general. Of the urban scenery in his films, Oshii says, "It's not just something to fill the space behind the characters. The silent world behind the characters is where the director has to communicate his core vision. The backgrounds are the director's vision of reality. There has to be something behind the characters that conveys a message." When it comes to feature films, Oshii is undoubtedly one of the ultimate proponents of this outlook. That said, even if you've seen movies such as Ghost in the Shell, you might not have appreciated the subtlety with which he employs the background artwork to communicate information about the fictional world. I know I certainly didn't. So, it got me thinking, just what are science fiction and fantasy authors communicating in the manner by which they reveal the so-called backgrounds of their worlds? Well, I recently published a video series on Isaac Asimov's Foundation books. In one episode, I examined his specific approach to writing. Of the world building in his work, he himself said that he never had an image in his head when he wrote. Any pictures that were produced in the reader's imagination were purely incidental. Now, as much as I love Asimov's work, I think it's fair to say that any philosophy he had in regards to this matter probably would have been unconscious. In which case, you could say that his work was reflective of his dialectic outlook on reality. His reaction to the world around him was to have an ongoing discussion with it, as shown through his stories in which a succession of characters argue over numerous points of conflict. Of course, this isn't a video about Isaac Asimov. Old habits die hard. It's just that I was a little surprised by the depth and sensitivity Stefan Riekels unearthed when talking with the artists who worked in the background of films like Akira, Metropolis, the aforementioned Ghost in the Shell and its sequel, Innocence, Rebuild of Evangelion, and more. Really, what I've come to expect from art books of this type is kind of a superficial explanation about where the concepts for such and such a piece of artwork came from. Not thought-provoking statements that inspired me to re-evaluate classic pieces of work across countless forms of media. That is to say, throughout the interviews, Riekels shows both restraint in his praise and respect in the way he allows the staff members to suggest which pieces of art best embody the thinking behind their past productions. Besides all that, there is plenty of interesting behind-the-scenes details about some of the greatest films ever made. In regards to Mamoru Oshii's films, for example, the book charts his increasing interest in capturing the realism of the cities he created. As it turns out, he utilised an incredible amount of photography reference to accomplish a level of detail that's practically unparalleled, even in live-action film, as funny as it sounds, thanks to an intense focus on spatial awareness from shot to shot. For those of you who know the name Satoshi Kon, a manga artist and anime director whose work has been borrowed from by the likes of Christopher Nolan and Darren Aronofsky, it's a revelation to see some of the background art he contributed to Oshii's filmography. There's this one piece in particular where he drew the horizon line for a skyscraper shot high up in the sky, which is probably just a few passing seconds on screen, but is strangely mesmerising to stare into when viewed on the page. Meanwhile, over in the world of Katsuhiro Ôtomo, it was cool to see some of the audition pieces he requested from two background artists when he began pre-production on Akira. One, provided by Toshiharu Mizutani, is very much in tone with what the film would ultimately become, a never-ending landscape of believably constructed urban infrastructure that would make the chaos that unfolds within it feel all the more destructive. While the other, provided by Nizo Yamamoto, is far more expressionistic, a style that would lose him the job on Akira, but find him a home on the likes of Grave of the Fireflies, Princess Mononoke, and Spirited Away, which I guess you could take as further evidence of Oshii's insistence that the backgrounds in these films are where much of the director's visions are expressed. All told though, this is an art book, so you'd expect it to be printed on suitably impressive paper stock. And on that front, I'd say I wasn't left disappointed. I do kind of have a pet peeve about seeing large pieces spread across the fold of 2 pages, which happens a few times in the course of the collection, but short of having a big fold-out page, I don't really see another solution. You know, even if the publishers did decide to do that, I think it would have robbed the whole thing of some of its elegance. At $50 for the book, you might be put off by the relatively high price point. I was lucky enough to have received it as a gift, so even I'm not sure if I would have bought it for myself. But having enjoyed it as much as I have, I can sincerely recommend it as something worth saving up for. Whether you're an anime fan, sci-fi lover, or have an interest in cinematography, there's an incredible amount of food for thought. The presentation issue does lose at a point, but only because the ideal form to view the pieces in would be for me to have an entire wing of my house act as a gallery dedicated to the original artwork. I am not quite a YouTube sensation yet, so that isn't about to happen anytime soon. If you'd like to help me get there, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. And if you're curious to watch a video in which I discuss a novel that had an influence on the world of anime, then might I suggest you check out my analysis on A Wizard of Earthsea, which seems to have had a pretty large impact on the work of Hayao Miyazaki. Until then,